Not a minute, few seconds to say hi to everybody, everyone watching right now live, and everyone who's hopefully going to take a look at this in the future. My name is Erin Trahan. Welcome. This is part of the ARTery at WBUR's Living Room live stream series. We're really excited to be able to talk to Sally Wu today about her film, The Good Daughter. It had its North American premiere with the Salem Film Fest this week and is continuing to stream live. You're still able to watch it through Salem Film Fest. They're partnering with WBUR and the ARTery on today's event, so we want to thank them. But most of all, we really want to say hi to Sally and welcome you to talking about your film and yeah, kind of get right into it. So, yeah, how are you today? How's it going over there?
Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. So, I guess the way I thought this would work, I would tell the audience a little bit about you, Sally, who also grew up going by Ying Wu in Taiwan, where she grew up and where she was born and raised. And so I've got a little background, and then I've got lots of questions, but we really want to hear from all of you watching right now. We want to know what questions you have about the film, about the filmmaking process, and some of the issues that it raises. So without further ado, so Sally has lived in the US since the early 2000s, and after studying advertising and media, decided to be an editor, right? And has been working in collaboration with documentary filmmaker David Sutherland for almost 15 years. Together, they've made multiple projects for PBS, Country Boys from 2006, some of you might remember, Kind-Hearted Woman from 2013. Along the way, Sally started to produce and started working with Marlo Porras on Run Granny Run. I remember, loved that movie when it came out. And then also they also collaborated on the Muju Sisters in 2014. Oh, and Marcos Doesn't Live Here Anymore, which is another David Sutherland movie that I talked to some of those subjects for WBUR actually. Anyway, so then something happened along the way, and Sally, you decided you wanted to strike out on your own, and this is your debut feature-length documentary.
Yeah.
And we would love to hear just kind of like what happened to make this story one that you needed to tell.
I mean, I started my career as a documentary in the documentary filmmaking world after I came to this country. So, and after working with David Sutherland, who is, of course, inspired me so much, his work, and have the honor and was able to learn so much from him, I started to think, oh, I should make a film about people I really care. And of course, it has to be people who I, grow up with, or people that from my childhood. So I thought I should make a film about people in Taiwan. And so, especially after co-producing with Marlo on The Most of Sisters, I started to feel, I could do it. And I feel strongly about documenting people's life in Taiwan. In a way, it's also a way for me to connect with people there, connect with my home country, being so far away. So that's why I decided to, go back there to make a documentary. And this film, I particularly choose a place that's not far from where I grew up. It's actually only an hour away from where I grew up, but I really don't know much about it. Really, it's like another country away from what I know, what I knew before. So when I researched, I focus in that area, and I just get more and more into, this is a forgotten corner in that country, that stories, or people's way of life that I want to document it. And that's how I got into this film. Yeah.
And the town where it's mostly takes place is kind of on the southwestern side of Taiwan.
Yeah. It's like southern western. It's officially the poorest county in Taiwan, because it's it feels like, a lot of people told me it feels like, stuck in time, like from 50 years ago. Not much is changed in that place. But people's life, that and that makes me even want to know more about how people's life are right now. Yeah.
And the issue of the topic of the film about foreign brides being married into from poorer countries into countries with a little more money, like Taiwan. That, when did that come to your attention, and when did you start paying attention to that issue?
I know this whole practice has been going on since early 1990s. I've known it since I was, in college. I remember almost 20 years ago. And I remember seeing these commercials or ads or posts on the poles, like in the countryside, electric poles, about, you can spend this much money, can buy you a beautiful bride. So that I've seen that. I remember that. And I also remember my own, family, within my own family. I do actually have relatives that, like, during Chinese New Year gathering, they introduced this, quiet girl to me as my cousin's wife, who's probably at that time is only 19, and she already has like 2 kids, and just being very quiet and shy, and just with a smile on her face and not much to say. So those images stuck with me about foreign brides. So it's always in the back of my mind how these, there are these women in Taiwan that now I don't really know who they really are, and what they are really like. So, and
then somehow along the way, you met this couple who welcomed you into their lives. How did you meet them?
So initially when I went to the villages in that area, I was actually looking for another subject. It's a single father subject, because that area has very high percentage of single father, like of the whole country. So I was curious about why. And after I researched and went into it, I learned that it's because a lot of the foreign brides, or their wives from Southeast Asia, or at that time also a lot of them from China, from like rural area in China, a lot of them actually left, and leaving the kids and the husband, and that's why there are so many single father, and there's all these children that's sort of left by their mother. So then I started to go into more and meeting these new immigrants, wives, women in Taiwan. I started to meet groups of them through like counseling services, and through like some nail salon places. And this woman, Azhe, I met her through just a tiny little like home nail salon, like a Vietnamese run, like a home salon place. Because it's a gathering place for a lot of Vietnamese women in the area, in that village, and the nearby villages. So I was stationing out there, just meeting all kinds of women, coming there to get their nails done, and chatting with them. And that's how I met Azhe. She wasn't really there to get her nails done. The first time I met her, she just got off her work on the oyster farm. And I remember that was about like 4:00. And she came in, she said, she just loaded like 30 baskets of oysters. And she's still like preppy and still very energetic and smiling. And I was like, aren't you tired? I mean, she's baskets. And she's like, oh no, I love the ocean. She loves being on the ocean. She loves the breeze. She loves, it's so hot there. So she thinks it's nice to be on the ocean and it cools her down. And I think there's also a sense of just liberty on the ocean. It's a place she feels really free there. So that's my first impression of her. So, and then
it's interesting that really comes through in watching your movie again. I thought more about that job and what made her kind of defend it with her husband.
Yeah.
And it actually seemed to give her satisfaction.
Yeah.
It's not, she doesn't articulate it quite like that, but
right.
I'm not surprised
Yeah.
to learn that.
Yeah. No, that's I mean, that's how she talks about her job. I try to show it instead of, so what I show is she really embraces this job. It's a way for her to get away from some of the things and being able to be herself. Yeah.
Definitely. And the film does shows overtelling so well. At what point when you were making the film, actually, I'm going to stop myself and say, hey, if you're out there and you're watching and you have a question, jump in. We want to hear them. So I'll get back on track. So you're making the film at what point did you realize this film is all about money?
It's pretty early on. I mean, when I first started, she was in the middle. She already started to try to save money for her family to build a house. And when I started, it was her 6th year in Taiwan. And it's actually for her that she's almost embarrassed she hasn't built a house for her family yet, because she looks around her friends or other Vietnamese in Taiwan, or her in her village back in Vietnam. So many other women, they already built a house like this first year or the second year, and it took her 6 years to be able to start saving enough money. Because actually before she was saving for the house, she was paying off her family debt. Yeah, that's part of the reason. And the other reason is that she has to work hard.
Okay.
In Vietnam, her family has some debt that she needs to help pay off. I mean, that's already in the past, so I didn't include it in the film. But that's why it's. So she feels very strongly. When I started filming, that's also her 2nd year on the oyster job. That was only her 2nd year, because before that she was focusing on her little children. She wasn't able to work on the ocean on that job. So when her children got a bit older, she started to work on this job, and that's when she could really start to save money to build a house. So, and pretty early on, I know, because on the farm, she has to struggle with her family in Vietnam and her farm. The farm with her husband, they also struggle a lot. It's always a money issue, always, constantly. So, yeah, pretty early on. I mean, it is it's always about money.
Yeah, and he says that essentially. What does he say? I could have mountains of gold, and it would still never be enough.
Yeah. And I mean, that's also a way how people describe Vietnamese, women in Taiwan. They always have this thing, oh, they're just there to try to get as much money as they can, or, it's sort of it's just how people perceive them. They are sort of perceived as gold digger. So, which, I mean, it's true. I mean, they are there because their family needs money.
Yeah. Exactly. It's not a secret, and I found that to be interesting too. Were you surprised by how openly the whole idea of, basically an old-fashioned dowry,
Yeah.
that's still a common practice and a sanctioned practice. Was it in any way surprising to you by how freely everyone, I mean, they weren't hiding anything about it.
Right. I mean, it's the expectation of the family, of the husband, of these men's family in Taiwan. I mean, their expectation, because okay, when they went there to marry these women, they already pay certain amount to the brokers, to the agents, and they did not know exactly how much money that goes into the bride's family. And according to Azhe, it's very little. They got very little from the brokers. Like she said, you'll be amazed how little they got. And so the family, they accept it because they expect these women, these daughters, to make money and send home the money. And that's why they accept this whole practice. And but the families in Taiwan, these men, their family just sort of, we already pay for it. That those money should be what, and I mean, traditionally Chinese, yeah, exactly. We worry for the women, for the brides, it's old fashioned. I mean, even that's still traditional Taiwanese family, Chinese family, they still do that. And in the traditional Chinese family, women, they after they marry, you belong to the husband's family. Is you are not one of your, parents' family. You are your husband's family. You expect it to be in this family to do everything for them.
And I think I could be wrong, but I think historically and globally that has been the case for women in all of recorded human history.
Yeah.
Perhaps not. Someone can chime in and let me know if I'm wrong. I wish I was wrong. So Malin, I hope I'm saying your name right, Malin, has a question. The mother-in-law is not like Azhe, but seems to be okay to have hidden her son's physical disability. Can you comment on that? Oh, not like Azhe. Got it.
Not like Azhe. Seems okay to have hidden her son's physical.
I'm guessing that she means maybe in relation to the transaction of choosing her as a wife, but I could be wrong about that. So in other words, like how transparent perhaps do you think that process is? Like how much do the potential brides know about who they might marry?
I know what you mean. When the parent, okay, when the process of them going to Vietnam, the mother-in-law and the son, they went to Vietnam together, right, to choose a woman. And Azhe didn't have her family stay with her because she was already waiting. Well, like the matchmaker said, you have to wait there until you were chosen. So she was waiting there. I believe it's her. I remember it's not that long. She's been there like for 2 weeks or something. Before she was chosen by Long, she was chosen by a Korean man first.
Huh. And she was also not his first choice.
Yeah.
The mother-in-law reveals, right?
So the Korean man ended up, she was like chosen by like, I forgot why she didn't, like something about the Korean man ended up choosing another woman. So she stayed, she had to stay, and she was giving her, she said, I'm gonna stay for another month. If I don't get chosen, I'll just pay off the debt and I'll go home. And then the following week she was chosen by Long. So she knew Long was disabled right away when she was there. She knew it.
She doesn't, does she have any veto power? Not that she would him necessarily, but I'm just wondering about how much agency the women on her end have.
What Long told me is they were told that if you chose a woman and this woman legally, age, everything is legal, then they can't say no. If they say no, they have to get fined. That's what Long told me. That's what the agent told them. And Azhe, she told me when she was chosen, and she actually, well, first of all, she didn't want to stay there much longer. And because she wasn't chosen by the first man, she was worried how much longer she would have to wait. And she said long seemed nice from that first meeting. So she said yes. That's why she said yes. And they stayed, they were like in Ho Chi Minh City for a few days, and then within a week they had a wedding there. And the wedding so like within a week the families came from the village to Ho Chi Minh City for the wedding. Yeah, so the father saw him a week later, but that's already after the fact that she has. So when the reason the father was saying, she told the father, he is disabled, and the father did ask her, "Are you sure?" And he does say, I mean, he didn't, push her to reject this, but he does say, "Are you sure he's disabled?" But she already said yes to him, so there's really, she can't really say anything else.
Just want to encourage questions from the audience. We would love to hear from you too. But I have one in the meanwhile. What did making this film make you think about that spectrum of what marriage is? There are matches for lots of other reasons in some parts of the world. There are what we call love marriages. Then, there's this kind of commerce or transactional type of marriage. What did it make you think about that continuum, if it is a continuum?
I mean, I actually, it's like my parents were matchmaked. So I came from, traditionally a lot of my parents' generation in the countryside, in the villages, not because they weren't in the cities. They were farmers. Both my parents' families are mostly farmers. So, they're living the next villages, and they just got matched by a matchmaker. That's how. So I actually I grew up with this notion that this matchmaking, and I'm not saying, they're the best match, but they do, they've married for over, almost 50 years. And they are, they never give another thought that this is not working. So, but watching Azhe and Long, I actually think the two of them, I was amazed how they actually understand each other's situation, and they actually both they're in a way they're in similar situation, meaning they all are very dutiful to their parents, or this responsibility that they have on their shoulder. It's all both very, very important for them. And it's exactly that they were able to, he's helping her, and she's doing as much as she can to help him, like working on the farm. She always knows that she has to help him because of his disability. And she tries to do as much as she can. So in a way, I'm touched by this, even though they didn't, marry out of love, but because they were trying to make this, they do try to make this marriage work. They do try to do the best for their kids. I know that they both really love their kids very much and want the best for their kids. So in that sense, I do think it's a kind of love, and it's not, it's a different kind of love. But I do think there is something very touching between them. For me, yeah.
To me, that really comes through, and it's one of the great strengths of the film is that I think it actually does. It does speak to marriage in all of these different ways. Anybody who's been in that kind of a relationship or any type of long-term partnership relationship where families are become intertwined and those family expectations, you know, weigh on each partner. A lot of what this couple faces, I think, resonates in just about any kind of a committed relationship in a lot of ways. And I this is where I'd love for some of the people in the audience to even just comment. You don't need to have a question, but curious if you agree that I did feel a kind of a love between them, or at least a kind of a respect for.
Yeah, I feel that way too. Maybe because I feel that way so strongly. It's the things you can feel it. It comes through in the things, you know, things that's they do really. And I actually knew that very early on because they are. That's what's amazing about them. They are very sensitive and very understanding of each other's feelings, and you need to care about somebody to be able to do that. And that's what I love about the two of them. Even there's so much pulling them apart.
Yes.
Yeah.
So here's a question off Facebook from Allison Hayden Schmidt. There seems to be a fear that many women will leave their husbands and need to leave their children and be disgraced and also be separated from their children. Do women have any rights as far as custody in these situations?
It's if these women, they became citizenship, they should have as much right as the men. So they have to first become the citizens in Taiwan. And I think the process should start at least 3 years. They have to stay there in the marriage for 3 years for them to start the citizenship process. But the problem is a lot of these women, or like for Azhe, it's gonna be hard for her to, especially when the kids are small, to leave with the kids, because she will have to work and she will have to take care of the kids herself. And for her, that's beyond what she can do. She doesn't have any support network there. So that kind of insecurities stop women taking the kids with them. They are out there on their own, and they have to work and send money back home, and they have to survive in a foreign country by themselves. So yeah,
there's also a way in which not to give it away in the case of your film. Hopefully everyone saw it, but there's a way in which there's a shadow scenario, and you're imagining as you watch these two the kind of worst case scenario that could be happening for women in Azhe's situation. At least for me, as I'm watching it, I worried for all the women who actually, I just like even all of the things about passports and visas and the transfers and what he tells her and doesn't tell her, all of those layers. To me, I just kept thinking, oh no, this is a trap. I just kept thinking everything was a trap that, anyway. But we have another question. So let's move to that. Are there groups that support or provide networks of support for women in her situation?
I mean, in Taiwan, the government do try to build up a support network and group for them. But I do, when I can't say how much support, at least for us, she doesn't really think, I have to say she doesn't really trust the support she can get. So I can only speak for her situation. She did try to join, there are these support groups, she goes there with these, that's run by the government, and they get together, they give them some lessons and give them, they can learn the language, or they can do some cooking together, just to give them that kind of, and then she can get together with the other Vietnamese women. So, so there are groups like that. How much these support group they are with these women, or they can't openly say leave the husband or leave or provide them a way out of whatever the discrimination or any exploit or even any abuse they have. But I mean, she doesn't really. I can't say I've never been to like I've never been to. I only went to like some kind of lesson. They give them some lesson to make craft so they could, I mean, that she thinks that's not that much helpful. So in that area,
job training. In other words, more job training or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a kind of job training, which I actually think is a little bit diminishing. It's like, oh, these women, they can only do crafts, they can only do sewing, but I think about what else they can do. I don't know. I'm just, for me, it's just diminishing because, yeah, it's like giving them these little pearls to make necklaces or things like that. And so that I don't think that's that helpful, really. I don't think any those support and is that helpful. And it also involves I know, I mean, not her situation, but there are women that are being physically abused, but who these women turn to, and are they, who's really on their side? I know in the cities, they're probably in big cities like Taipei, they have more sophisticated help for these women. But in small villages, it's not, I don't think it's that helpful.
I wondered if you could go back to the premiere you were able to have in Taiwan with people in the audience, and how it went for you, how that felt, what their response was.
Yeah, so the film premiered at the Golden Horse Film Festival in Taipei, and it was great because we were able to do a screening in a theater with people in the theaters. And I got really good response from the audience. I have audience coming up crying, saying, reminds them of their own mother. And they asked really, I mean, they're mostly really amazed at how close I could get to these people, because for them, how these people would just open up and expose their own life in a way, good or bad. To me, they are kind of shocked. That's mostly how they want to find out. And I say it's really, I was just trying to let them tell their own story. That's the key, is, they tell their own story, not me telling their story. So, but so many people say it reminds the grandmother, the mother-in-law reminds them of, for young people, it reminds them of their own grandmother. That's the thing. It reminds them of how their grandmother treated their own mother. So, yeah.
So Pat Hyde has a question, and actually, this is such a great scene to bring up. So I'm glad we've got a question on it. Can you comment on the scene where she's negotiating for more money to take to Vietnam? They're both so open in front of the camera.
They just went on. I mean, I was shocked too, because that was really the night before she was about to. No, that was a few nights before she was about to leave, because I went back on that trip, and I asked them to just, they finish their work. That's the end of the day. I just say, she's leaving. Just sit down and chat. And, how do you feel about her leaving? How do you feel about the kids going to Vietnam? Just chat with each other. And they just went on. And they said, I mean, that's what I love about them. I mean, even like on the oyster farm, when he say, I just don't have money to pay people, what do you want me to do? He's also very open about it. It's not just to me, he's open to all the farmers there. I just don't have money to pay you now, but I'll pay you. But you just have to wait. And that's one of it is what I love about them, is they don't hide their weakness. They don't, they're not ashamed of it. That's just who they are. Yeah.
So there weren't any of those awkward moments where they were like, oh, like, take that out, don't use that, or, oh, I don't know.
No, actually, I didn't really, no, they didn't like say, no, don't cut this scene. No, or after the fight, nobody ever told me, you can't use this. That's never, first of all, I don't let them control my creative control, but they never say that, actually, never. And they watch the film, they like. They actually say, long as you say, why do anybody want to watch this? It's just wait, it's just normal life. Why do anybody want to watch this?
And what did you make of that?
He actually say it's only you intellectuals who want to watch this. I say, what did I say? I say it's because I'm glad you feel that way, because for me it's a way of telling me I did catch something real. I didn't show everything, but I did, catch something real. For me, it's a really great comment. And I just say, I'll tell you more after I scream more. Why do people want to watch it? Yeah.
Yeah. So here's Malin off of Facebook with another great question. What will be the fate of Azee's children? That the girls are mixed race, ethnicity. Will that be problematic for them as they get older?
Yes, actually, the children, because when I started, they're so young. And I actually did see their change over the years. And this whole mixed race it does start to get showing more and more on the children's identity or how they feel. The scene when they fought in the end, like toward the end, you can see the girls, they're sort of used to it. They, sort of just stare and tell them to stop. When they were younger, it's actually, I wasn't able to, I was there once. I was able to film it once when they were younger, when there is a big fight like that. And it was kind of traumatic. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to use it because that's before you really, the reason of the fight, I mean, it's always about money, but I didn't want to sensationalize, this kind of kids' emotion too much. But there's a change is, especially the older one. I mean, he's getting all mixed up in this whole, one is her own grandmother, who you can see, who loves her, who cares about her. And one is, her own mother. And that's a big, how that's gonna do to her. These two women who love her and she loves so much, they hate each other. Mm. And then there is her seeing, she did, like her father did say, Long did say that once to me, is, she would sometimes make comments like, oh, look at those, like in a night market, or she would say, those women who dye their hair, they are all Vietnamese women. Or she would make comments like that. So it's coming out in her observation. Mm-hmm. And when they went back to Vietnam, they can't communicate with anybody there. But they feel, the grandparents were hugging them, the aunts, they are all very nice to them. So they also feel they are welcomed there, but they can't communicate with them at all. So I do kind of worry about just also on the psychological impact on these children. I do worry about mm-hmm. it. And there are so many of the children like them in mm-hmm. Taiwan. Yeah.
There's a question I've really been dying to ask, and we have time for a few more for those of you who are watching right now, and you want to weigh in, please do. I'd really like to know how the family is now, and I'm especially curious about her niece.
Oh,
and
yeah.
What is
Yeah. Okay. So I'll tell you the niece first because it's just as it's new. She also just married a Taiwanese man through matchmaking. She just arrived in Taiwan in February. So that's, the cycle begins there.
But that means, because I'm not sure when you shot that last scene though, that means that she didn't go at age 17. She
No,
was
right.
maybe,
She's 19 now. Yeah.
I was going to hope for 22, but
No, no, she's 19. No, she's 19. Yeah.
And would she and her aunt ever be able to connect? Like,
Oh, yeah,
are they
yeah.
close enough?
Yeah, they're close enough.
I mean,
So that,
so
yeah, so
maybe,
so maybe it's not, yeah. So I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, she married a man who went there, they met once and they decided to get married. So she doesn't really know much about this man. She doesn't know much about his family. She's living with his family. So, but the big thing is she has her aunt there who, could be a really good, who's gonna be a good, great support there for her even, and also she's really young, so um, that's another story to tell. And Azhe and Long, they are, still, I mean, things are just still up and down like before. She's never gonna leave. She's never gonna leave the kids there. The kids are older now. I mean, the older one is taller than her now. So um, she's still doing the oyster job, same thing. I kind of worry about her because it's really taking a toll on her physical strength. It's really, really intense. I mean, that's what I describe. It's really intense. I have to tell you, those oyster strings, they have to pull up, and she does it like it's nothing when you see it. But
those scenes are really casual, but they look so precarious.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's hard to imagine. I mean, I just kept waiting, someone was going to slip, or I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's precarious, and the oysters, they are heavy. They're really heavy. So, but she's still doing it because she still needs a job. She still has a lot to do. The farm is doing the one thing that changes. The husband long decided not to do so much farming because the climate change is making everything so hard. The whole farming, garlic farming, is so labor intense. They weren't able to get the laborers they need. So he's cutting down the farming. That means, they need her job more than ever. Yeah.
So here's one from Jeff Schmidt, the program director. Hope I got that right, of Salem Film Fest. Can you talk about the dynamic between Azhe and her mother and brother-in-law? Mother-in-law and brother-in-law. It seems like in their eyes she can't ever do anything right. Are they ever appreciative of her?
Not when I was there. Not when I was there. It just seems they just I think one thing about she's just not what they expect. They really expect someone who doesn't talk back, who just do things they told her to do. And she has too much of a strong mind. And she's, they expect her to just cook and make everything neat and clean everything well. No matter what other job you have, you just need to come home and do your job at home. And that's not who she is. I mean, she's and the brother is just, I mean, he's also another story. He's he really, when I was there, for him, he really treats her like he's just a domestic helper there. So they when I was there, I mean, the mother sometimes, is would Like I could see the mother. I mean, I think she's exhausted in a way herself, because she still farms and she still needs to farm. And that she just has the temper, all the time, especially when she's tired. And she's an easy target. She's just an easy target. But I don't think and she's in her 80s. So I do feel for her, like, she still has to work, and she still has to worry a lot of things financially too. She still does. So I don't see her just completely black and white. I really don't. But the fact that she is tired, and she also thinks she's not appreciated enough. That's the other thing I noticed.
Mother-in-law.
The mother-in-law.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the other thing, because she thinks she helps so much, she still works so much, and she's not appreciated enough. Maybe throughout her whole life she wasn't, appreciated enough. That's how she feels. And so that's what she shows to Azhe. Yeah, so there's I think there's also some of that self-reflection on her.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
that question's a great segue to this. Might be we'll see how it goes in case anyone else has any last questions. But so that leads us to your title, The Good Daughter. So what you've kind of answered it in a way. What does it mean to be a good daughter? And what did did that concept shift for you in the making of this film?
the whole journey began as she is a good daughter. That's where her journey began. It didn't begin. The reason, she's in this country and her life, how it is now, it all began is from she's being a good daughter, and she wants to help her family. And it's almost for her, it's almost impossible not to have her family on her mind, on her shoulder, how difficult their life is. She just can't just just go on her own life without thinking about it. And I mean, I didn't have to do that myself. And it's hard for me. It's hard to a lot of people say, yeah, you shouldn't continue. You have to, you need to pay attention to focus on your own family. You need to start focusing on your own kids, their future, all of those things. And she knows that too, and she struggles too. But if her family, one phone call, that's it. She just has to do it. It just seems she can not ignore them at all. So it's this. I think it's also culturally, they have a culture of putting that on the daughters. In Vietnam, she told me people there, they prefer to have daughters than sons, because the daughters help more. And so yeah, for me it's I myself is like, you how much longer are you gonna do this? But I also understand if she doesn't do it, I don't think she can go on. That's a problem. Yeah.
And there is a sense of kind of like there isn't a mountain of gold, not like, I guess that she could never do enough, really.
Yeah.
For either family, she could never meet her mother-in-law's expectations.
Yeah.
But that she could also like never send enough money home, and that's gotta feel tough.
Yeah, it does. It's really, and exactly, yeah. So I feel, I mean, her parents, I think her father, in a way, I do feel her father feels for her.
Mm.
I do feel that way, but what they need, they just really need it. And like, for example, she has another, one of her other sister, her older sister's daughters, just married a Vietnamese man in the countryside, and they need her help. That was just recently, and the why they need help, because the kids, the babies they have needs stuff. They just don't have anything, and so they, constantly asking for one thing after another, and so it's unbelievable for me, like how she's doing this. Yeah, and in a way, the niece is like their other hope, who marry a Taiwanese man. It is so, in a way, they feel like, oh, that's helping Azee. Is take off her load and put it on the next one.
Meanwhile, it's the two of them who are, indirectly getting the road paved, to the family's homes, building the homes.
Yeah.
Buying the motorbike, but as her dad reminds her, but not the gas.
Yeah. I know. It's yeah. Yeah. When I translated, I almost dropped that too. Wow. Because I didn't know what they were saying. It was all, after I'm editing and I have someone translate it.
But the thing is, I mean, we've all had probably those interactions with our family members, right? We're like, we're trying to do something, we're trying to help them, and we're like, I'm doing this, and they're like, and
yeah.
I mean, I think so much of all of those, the details in which they communicate and the things that they're kind of negotiating are, I don't know, I think they're really familiar.
Good. Yeah. A lot of people told me, they find something universal. A lot of something they feel like they could connect. And even the mother-in-law, I mean, a lot of people actually also think it reminds them of their own mother or mother-in-law. Yeah.
I mean, there isn't a long litany of mother-in-law jokes for no reason at all.
Yeah,
although I'm not a proponent, but I'm,
No, me neither. Okay.
Yeah. But so this, we opened with talking a little bit about your filmography and all the things that you've done that have kind of led you to this project, and and you've been an editor, you've been a producer. In this film, you did all three. You edited, produced, directed. You had a really small crew. How did that go for you, and just in terms of your, the arch of your, where you want to go professionally and artistically?
Yeah. So I was, because this is my first film, and it's, I totally did it just out of my own passion and my connection to the people there. And I love editing the film and producing and directing. It's every part of it I love. So I was able to, get really good, a small crew, and eventually we all were able to get really on the project together. They all understand what get into their lives and understand the importance and what I'm trying to show of their lives to tell the story. So I definitely feel like it's great that I have this group of the crew that we could really communicate so well, and we all work together so well for my next film. And also just on board, I got so many help from so many people. I mean, David Sutherland and
other local filmmakers community. I got so much advice from them. It is amazing. So yeah, I feel like, I'm definitely ready to take on my next project.
Actually, that one more question, at least for me. Anybody else out there, kind of last call, post your questions, comments. What, I know that this was actually the winner of the inaugural Massachusetts pitch session, which for those of you who don't know is, it's happens at a lot of film festivals, but at Salem, documentary film producers show a work in progress and then get awarded. I forget what it was in your case, but you were the first, and then now here you are premiering at this festival.
Yeah.
So, and I also know that there's lots of other, local to Boston communities. You've gotten a lot of community support. So I don't know if there's just anything to comment about, the local ties here to making a film that takes place in Taiwan and Vietnam. It's kind of a remarkable thing.
Yeah, no, I was Salem Film Festival, when I pitched there, it was my first time. I pitched in Taiwan, but coming back to this country to pitch, I wasn't sure how people are gonna, how are they gonna see a film like this, a Taiwanese film with a, mother-in-law like that. So I wasn't sure. And I was so glad that the response I got during that pitch and won the award. It was amazing. The award helped me finish the film because, I got a grant to do the sound mixing WGBH, which is super helpful. Jim Sullivan's the sound mixer, and he's amazing. And it's really vital to get there. And also just this the communities, when they want, like I led foundation who support this film, and they're all the way so supportive. And I'm just so grateful. They just, I don't like, sometimes I also wonder why are they so supportive of Taiwanese film? But I just like, I feel like they see, it's an important film, and they want people to see this corner of the world that you don't get to see much. So I really, really appreciate that. And yeah, it's all of this support that helped me get to finish this film.
And there was, it kind of came and went, but somebody said, was it Bonnie? Yeah, Bobby, sorry. Bobby on Facebook, I'm looking forward to seeing the film. So Bobby, we, definitely put it on the top of your list.
Yeah.
You still can. And Malin has come back. Kudos on your doc pitch. The film is terrific.
I'm
thinking maybe you see
the pitch? Yeah.
Yeah, was a part of that or remembers you from that, which would be really cool.
Yeah.
Well, we certainly wish we could be celebrating this North American premiere in person with you.
Yeah.
Even still, it's great to be able to have this conversation, and for all the people who are going to see the film to follow up. I happen to be a huge fan of things like this, as some of you out there know. I love to watch the movie and then, learn even more. It's a lot of fun, and we appreciate your generosity and sharing things about the process.
No, thank you so much.
So yeah, I think we're kind of good. I hope everyone out there in watching world live or later, that you're safe, that you're healthy, that you're watching a lot of movies, maybe a little TV, maybe not.
A lot of good films on Salem. Check out their website.
Sally, let's close with, on you. Like, you have any parting wisdom?
No, there's a lot.
That's a big question.
Yeah. Well, I enjoy taking this time to really go explore movies at home. I think it's actually, because you can't go out, you can't do much. So, and it's great. Like Salem, they just provide, there's so many great films each week. I really, really encourage everybody to explore their lineup.
It's a good lineup.
Yep.
And the good daughter is yep, can't miss. It's a
Thank
can't miss.
Thank you.
So I'm not sure how it works at this point, but I think we'll see if there's any, I guess, last questions. I don't know. I hope everyone has a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Thank you on behalf of WBUR and the Artery. And oh, I see the button now. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Have a great evening. And thank you again, Sally, for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.